Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Riot have put out another ton of articles where they talk about future plans, both in terms of their sort of balance changes and also in terms of what they're going to be doing for preseason this year. And there's a lot of sort of interesting things I want to talk about today, so I'm going to be running down those two articles, talking about their content if you haven't already seen them, and then kind of giving my 2 cents on the subjects covered within. Of course, I'm going to talk about the Lucian mid-scope changes we've got here first, as I think those are going to be really important for the character and something that's very near and dear to my heart, as I feel like mid lane and top lane Lucian in particular have been bugbears for such a long period of time in pro play. So I'm really excited to see that Riot are finally doing something to address that, as well as then talk about the preseason preview and kind of talk about a little bit more about what Riot are doing. So let's go ahead and jump into the Lucian changes. Now, so as with Sona and Xin Zhao before him, Lucian is up for some small changes to help revitalize his gameplay and especially to help address the divide between bot lane Lucian and solo lane Lucian. Now, part of the problem has been that if Lucian is playable in the bot lane, he usually means he's obscenely overpowered in the pro scene in a solo lane, particularly top and mid, as sort of a premier lane bully who can provide a lot of pressure in the early stages, especially given how strong the culling can be at just straight up 100 to 0ing champions and providing good wave clear and his ability to move around the map and do a lot of damage. It's a lot for Lucian to be able to bring to the table. But then if he's a balanced champion for mid and top lane, you just can't play him bot lane in regular play. And part of this is because Lucian doesn't have any mechanics that are, strictly speaking, better or worse in a solo lane versus a duo lane, right? Like, everything Lucian does, there's nothing that he needs a friend for in order to get value out of, right? Unlike a lot of supports where we've seen mechanics in their kits that they have to have a friend nearby. So like Leona can't proc her own passive, she needs a friend nearby. So even if you play her in a solo lane, you're essentially giving up on her passive's benefits. Lucian has none of those, and AD carries generally don't, but Lucian has so many other advantages that Riot are trying to find a way to help balance those two out, and they've found a pretty good way of doing it, which is giving a bonus to Lucian when he's with a friend. So now Lucian, whenever an ally buffs him, or whenever an ally procs his W passive for the bonus movement speed, he will also gain bonus on-hit magic damage on his next 2 auto attacks. This can stack up to 4 times, which means that Lucian has a total of 4 auto attacks, or 2 passive procs, worth of bonus magic damage on hit. I think this is a really nice change. In a similar vein to the Sona changes, this is not punishing solo lane Lucian for existing or being played, but rather it's incentivizing a bot lane Lucian by saying, wouldn't you prefer to have this bonus on hit magic damage? Obviously, if you play a Lucian in the solo lane, you will still have those benefits if you have a champion come mid lane to gank for you, or in like late game teamfight scenarios, like you're still going to have those benefits because you'll have allies either proccing your W passive or otherwise buffing you up. So in that regard, I do like this because solo lane Lucian can still benefit from it, but if you want to abuse it in lane, you're going to need to play Lucian in a duo, which I do quite like. The other thing that Riot are doing is they're making Lucian's R bullets now scale with items. This is the number of bullets he fires on his R. It used to scale with attack speed, then Riot made it a flat amount with the sort of mini rework they gave him back when they did the whole AD carry rework, and now they're essentially converting it to scale based off of the number of items he has completed. So in this regard, Lucian will still, this is sort of a way to bridge the gap between mid and bot Lucian, as they ostensibly both have the same amount of income, right? Like bot lane doesn't get any more or less farm than mid lane Lucian, and this is a good balancing act because mid lane Lucian, part of the advantage was that because he had a solo laner's experience, he could hit level 11 very fast and get that upgraded ultimate very quickly, and then do a lot more damage than you would expect. This way, Lucian is breaking even at the same points in every game, all things being equal, so it's not like playing him in the mid lane is giving you a tremendous advantage over playing him bot lane in that regard. I really, really like where these two changes are at for Lucian. I think they're very nuanced and very thoughtful changes, and hopefully they do a lot to make it so that you can still play bot lane Lucian without him being an oppressive force in pro play in a solo lane. Moving on to the preseason preview here, as there's a lot to kind of talk about here. Riot have confirmed that there basically isn't a single large project they're working on for this preseason, which is a really, really good thing to hear for me personally. This means that the gameplay is mostly where they want it, and in all honesty, this makes a lot of sense. I feel like virtually every single game system has been reworked over the last decade or so. The map, the jungle, the item system, the runes, like almost everything has been touched on and gotten a major rework at some point over the last few years, and the fact that Riot are essentially saying, yeah, there's no one thing we're like taking the whole game down to fix is a really huge deal for me, because it means that League of Legends is in a more sustainable state, right? They've gotten Rune sustainable, they've gotten their, currency system sustainable, they've gotten their sort of, their item system sustainable, how they're doing champions. Like, there's a lot I really think is great here. It does mean that they can focus on smaller tweaks and hopefully put more focus on areas of the game that do need more polish. I think that realistically speaking, Riot's next big project should be giving VGUs to a lot of the Season 1, Season 2 champions that still look terrible because every part of the game has been updated except for them. That's going to be a video for another day, so I won't harp on it too much. But this is a really good thing, I think, for Riot to not have a huge project to lead off preseason with, but they're going to be touching almost every aspect of the game in some small manner. I'm going to run through that list now. First up, Riot are talking about what they're going to be doing with dragons and map changes based on the elemental rifts. They're going to be tweaking, essentially what they said is that it's going to be more of a thematic change, or from what I understand in the article, it's going to be more of a thematic thing where they kind of showcase better the buffs you're getting from dragons, or alternatively the dragon souls. They did, however, mention that they will be doing some more map changes based on which elemental rift is going to be in effect. We've already seen some of these with how Infernal Rift has a bit more of an open space to it, and Mountain Rift has the extra terrain features that arise. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do for it. I think Cloud Rift is really the only one that doesn't feel too much different from how it works before, especially given that in the middle of the team fight, no one's getting the out-of-combat movement speed, so it sort of feels like you're playing on the same exact Summoner's Rift as before. But generally speaking, I think because these changes are mostly going to be thematic, I'm not that worried about it. They might be making the map feel a little bit more infernal or a little bit more ocean, if you kind of catch my drift, when those elemental rifts do happen. But other than that, I feel like there aren't going to be too many actual like changes happening to the game, but we'll have to wait and see what they're actually planning on doing. They're also doing a very small shop update rather than having a bunch of generalist items in the shop that, yeah, a bunch of champions can buy, but no champion particularly likes. Riot are essentially trying to change it so that some of these legendary items do have very refined niches and therefore have very small numbers of champions that actually want to buy them, but who buying them, it feels really good on them. You can think, for example, a Black Cleaver, which was a staple item on a bunch of champions back before the item shop rework, and then following the rework, because it was made more generalist, a lot of the sort of core users of that item stopped building it because there was sort of no reason to do so anymore. It was still good, but it wasn't really like the be-all end-all for those champions anymore. And so in that regard, I feel like, you know, if you reverted Black Cleaver for one, and I'm sure there are a bunch of other items that are a lot more generalist than they need to be, and they can be pushed back into their sort of very specific niches and very specifically saying, hey, these champions want to buy this, you know, these half dozen to maybe a full dozen champions want to buy this item. I think that's a fine thing to do, especially given that there are so many items in the game, and that there's already a lot of flexibility in your build path based on your mythic item. Because of that, there isn't really much of a reason to have to think about every single item in your build on a critical level. So I do like that Riot are kind of streamlining this system a little bit. They did say that they're going to be more support mythics for, more support mythics in general. I feel like they already have so many options in their own category alone, not counting being able to splash either tank or mage mythics based on what they want. But evidently Riot feel otherwise, and in all honesty, supports are already the kind of class that has a lot to think about in terms of their itemization, both who they're playing with and who they're playing against and what tools they need, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for them going forwards. Riot are also tweaking the rune system here a little bit. It happens pretty much every season, but Riot essentially said they're going to be taking a bigger look at the Inspiration Keystones, and I'm really excited for this, as Inspiration has been one of the hardest trees to design Keystones for. The whole point of Inspiration is it's supposed to be about rule breaking and sort of bending the resources and laws of the game, and that makes it very difficult to create a Keystone. If you consider that we've had Glacial Augment and Summoner Spellbook, which have both had their uses, but which have been fairly niche in their usage as well, and then there was Kleptomancy, which is unbalanceable, and then Prototype Omnistone, which hasn't really been taken on anybody at all or found a home outside of extremely, shall we say, troll builds. So in that regard, if Riot think they have a better Keystone to replace the current Prototype Omnistone with, I would love to see that added. They also said they would be looking at the minor runes as well. I'm very excited to see if they take a look at some of the more problematic minor runes, things like Ravenous Hunter and Nimbus Cloak. Ravenous Hunter, I think at this point, you can just take out of the game. I don't think hardly anyone takes it anymore. I legitimately think it's been nerfed into the ground. Nimbus Cloak is in a similar situation for me as well. On top of that, Phase Rush is in a difficult spot, I would think. So either way, really excited to see what they do about the rune system, but glad to know that they're looking at Inspiration in particular. One of the bigger things Riot are talking about as well are objective bounties. So if you're familiar with how the bounty system in League of Legends already works, an enemy champion either farms a bunch or gets a bunch of kills, they accumulate a bounty. Killing that champion not only gives you the kill gold, but also the bounty gold on top of that. Riot are going to be adding objective bounties to the game. So essentially, if the enemy team is running up the score on you objectives-wise, the next objective you take will cash out in a big way. I think that's potentially concerning because it does sort of ruin your ability to be very aggressive and shut out enemy champions and enemy teams in the early stages of the game by running up the objective score and generating a bunch of bonus gold. It feels kind of bad that you can do that, but now they get a bunch of gold if they even take one tower or sneak one dragon away from you. Like, in that regard, that feels kind of bad. But on the other hand, it is a good comeback mechanic. I like the fact that enemy teams can kind of think, you know, hey, if we can even cheese out one tower, we'll be one step closer to coming back into the game. And it also places a higher emphasis on objective control and objective focus. A lot of teams have problems, shall we say, with actually focusing on objectives. They tend to just chase down kills, and this is doubly true if they're enemy champions with bounties. They just kind of say, oh, this champion has a bounty, so just dogpile that guy, even though taking a mid lane tower might be more important than killing that one enemy champion. So I'm excited to see how these shake out. They could be very bad for the game, but in a similar fashion to how plate gold didn't totally break the game, and in fact was sort of a good balancing act, I do feel like this is probably okay. Finally, Riot are adding essentially achievements back to the game. Now, if you were playing back in Season 2, Season 3, you might remember the old achievements tab that was on the sort of summoner profile page that never ended up getting filled out and Riot eventually removed entirely. Well, achievements are going to be essentially coming back in the form of challenges. It's a way to track player progression and fun things you've done that doesn't involve playing ranked or working with the champion mastery system, right? So in that regard, I'm kind of excited because this is sort of a casual ranked system, right? Like you can show off the challenges that you've accomplished, and there's going to be sort of a cosmetic item that will upgrade itself over time depending on the number of challenges that you've completed. In that regard, I am a little weirded out by it because it feels like a bit of a boondoggle, because Riot, I feel like they're overcomplicating player profiles a little bit because there are a ton of icons and banners and accessories. You already have your rank, your champion mastery score, your clash banners, your player icons, your backgrounds. There's a lot already going on with your player profile, and adding yet another icon that may or may not mean anything to the people looking at it is sort of feels like it's a waste of time in my book. But I do like that Riot are sort of taking this time to look at the casual player and say, hey, there's no real way for you to show off, you know, maybe how long you've been playing the game for, or things you've done in the game that are cool outside of just ranked play. So here's this thing for you that we can give you that's going to be a little bit more fun for you guys to interact with. So in that regard, I am a fan. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. Let me know what you think of any of these things down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, especially on challenges. I know I'm hesitantly optimistic about them, but if you think these are the dumbest thing to ever exist, let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know what you think of the Lucian rework as well. Would love to hear your guys' comments on that. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.